As consumers, we have become accustomed to using technology to handle our daily activities. We depend on the convenience, speed, and benefits of using our computer, other technology, and online applications to shop, handle our financial business from home, and connect on social platforms. This increased dependence on technology and online services has also increased our risk and exposure to identity theft and other computer crimes. According to Javelin Strategy and Research, in 2018, the number of consumers who fell victim to identity fraud was 14.4 million, and out-of-pocket costs exceeded $1.7 billion. It is also important to know that anyone can become a victim of this type of crime, especially teens and young adults. For this reason, we are going to talk about some important tips and key steps to protect yourself and avoid becoming a victim of identity theft. We now join a podcast with Jonathan Miller and Brian Smith as they discuss their ways to help prevent online identity theft.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Miller, and I'm the marketing intern at the student-run Bulldog branch, which is located in Big Spring High School. Today, I'll be talking to Brian Smith, Information Services Security Specialist at Belco, about protecting ourselves against identity theft and other cyber-related crimes. Brian, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Jonathan?
I'm doing great. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I am the Information Services Security Specialist at Belco Community Credit Union. I currently have an associate's degree in information technology. I do specialize in security, though, and I also have two certifications, one of which is a Certified Banking Ethical Hacker, and the other one is a Certified Banking Security Technology Professional. Just because I'm always learning, I'm also currently pursuing my bachelor's degree in information assurance and cybersecurity. And with that, I will obtain 10 more cybersecurity related certifications. So I'm always trying to learn.
Identity theft is always in the news, but what tips can you provide to young adults to help them remain safe and avoid having their accounts hacked, compromised, or their identity stolen?
So identity theft is one of those things where it's just getting bigger and bigger every year. And it seems as though it's never really going to go away. So it's one of those things where people really need to, learn about information security and learn about how, they can protect their passwords and their accounts, their social security numbers, all their personal identifiable information about themselves. And one of the big things right away is that you always hear about, hospitals, schools, different government institutions, stuff like that getting breached. And in an identity breach or in a data breach, the reason why that's a big deal is because now hackers basically have an entire list of personal information about you. And if they don't use that to go out and commit identity theft and try to steal your identity, they can now use that to find more information about you.
Okay. You mentioned earlier about passwords. What tips can you share when it comes to creating a strong password?
So it's always been a kind of a golden thumb kind of rule where they want you to have a password that's at least 8 characters. And while that's certainly better than nothing, and that might be better than maybe a 4-digit PIN, an 8-character password really isn't secure anymore in today's world, just because an 8-character password, if you have a moderately powerful computer, they have programs out there that can actually break an 8-character password in a matter of 30 seconds. So anymore, I would say my big recommendation is to try to shoot for 12 characters if possible. Make sure you have a capital letter as well as lowercase letters. Numbers are fine, but you definitely want to have a few symbols in there if possible, at least one. And like I said, 12 characters would be your best bet.
You also mentioned email accounts, and we know they are essential to doing anything online. And with that in mind, what tips can you give us to avoid phishing schemes and other cyber attacks through email?
So this is the big one. In what I do at Belco, and really what I do whenever I help out friends and family members as well, email is by far the biggest threat to institutions like Belco and really anyone, because you need an email account for anything, whether it's a social media account, whether it's an app you're signing up for, whether it's for work purposes. You're going to need an email account for that. And the bad part is that attackers know that, and attackers know that that's going to be the number one way they can almost guaranteed reach you. So, I mean, really, there's just red flags you got to watch for. If you get an email, for example, at 4 a.m. from really anyone, that's pretty odd. Or if you happen to notice the email has, a bunch of misspellings, maybe not even misspellings, but just they address you in a strange way, or they demand that you take an action, or they say that you'll be punished if you don't take an action. Things like that are really things you need to watch out for whenever you're looking at emails.
So whenever you get these emails, what should you do? Should you contact a supervisor or just delete them?
So in the event that you're at work, for example, we actually have a tool built into our email client known as the Fish Alert tool. And what you can do with that tool is you receive a suspicious email and you want it to be looked at a second time, or you just want to report it just in case, it is a phishing attack and it might have went to multiple people. So what you do then is you press the button and it'll just delete it from your inbox, and it'll send it to the appropriate person that needs to look at it, which in the case of Belco, I would be the one receiving those. And if I get an email that looks like it is legitimate, I can take a couple more looks at it and I can send it back to them and let them know this. If I get an email that definitely looks bad, usually what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll check to see if anyone else did receive it, and then I'll reach out to them. Or in the event that it went out to a lot of people, I'll just make an announcement right away and I'll let the whole company know that, hey, be on the lookout for this email, and I might include a screenshot. But in the event that you're not at work, just delete it. You definitely don't want to click on any of the links, don't open any of the attachments, and definitely don't reply either.
Most teens and young adults have a cell phone and text regularly. Can scammers target text messages as well as email accounts?
Yes. So one thing that's kind of becoming more and more regular anymore is going to be that people rely on their phones for almost everything. It's becoming more and more common nowadays that a lot of people don't even use their computers. They don't even buy a laptop, a desktop, anything like that. They just have their phone, and they just rely on that for email, for all their social media and everything else. Especially with teenagers and young adults, a lot of them might not have a laptop. They might not get one until they're going off to college, stuff like that. So they're really on their phones, all day, doing everything. And the reason why that's a problem is because the hackers and bad guys know that too. So they're going to look at every way possible that they can to attack your cell phone. And if that includes text messages, well, that's quick and easy for them, just like it is for you. So attackers will very commonly, send a text message that might look like it's for one of your applications you use commonly, whether it's like a Facebook, hey, someone's trying to get into your account, you should click this link in order to investigate that. Well, a lot of people might see that and they might get scared and think, oh, I don't want someone to hack my account, and they click that link. Little do they know that link is actually what might lead to them getting their account hacked.
Teens and young adults, they use online applications such as Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and TikTok. What are some tips that can help them prevent identity theft on those applications?
So for that, we're going to have to circle back around to the email phishing, mainly because right off the bat, in order to have any of those accounts, you're going to have accepted or approved your account at some point. And usually, in order to register, they go through an email. So right off the bat, you're going to have to check your email every now and then, whether it's if you ever have to click forget your password, or if you ever have to go into your email for anything related to that account. You might see emails in there that aren't actually from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, So right off the bat, you got to be careful with not falling for any of those. And then not only that, but whenever you're in like Facebook, there's always Facebook Messenger, the Instagram DMs, Twitter DMs, stuff like that. You can even be hacked in those. It's not uncommon for a hacker to go in and make a fake Facebook profile. We've all seen it. You get an invitation from someone from North Carolina that has like 10 friends, and it seems like the only people they've added are really people in your area, even though they're from North Carolina. And the unfortunate part about that is a lot of people, they get into the habit of just accepting anyone on those social media outlets. And it's particularly on Facebook. That's where it's the most common, where they'll accept someone and they'll mysteriously get a text or a message from them, a couple days later, and it'll just be a link to something, or it'll be hey, I saw all these pictures online. Is this you?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, really to pique your interest, and it'll have a link or an attachment or something in it. And usually that's how they're trying to reach out to you in order to get a hold of your account.
Do you recommend changing your password ever so often, or if it's strong enough, is it okay just to leave?
So this one's kind of a double-edged sword. There's two sides to that. One of which, for example, NIST, which is the National Institute for Cybersecurity, they recommend having a very strong, secure password, greater than 12, sometimes even greater than 16 characters that you definitely can know and remember, but no one will ever guess about you. And if you have that strong password, they recommend, keeping it as long as you can, because if you go in regularly and you reset your passwords, resetting your password, humans tend to make things easier on themselves, which also would make things easier on the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
So if your password is, password 1234, you might go to change your password and think, all right, what can I change it to remember it? You might make it 1234 exclamation point at the end, and just make a small subtle change. Well, if a bad guy gets your old password, I guarantee you the first thing he's going to try is he's going to go in and he's going to add an exclamation point to it, or a question mark to it, or he's going to put a period. He's going to do something to slightly change the one you already had, because odds are that's probably what you're using.
So more often now, we're using financial applications to send and receive money on apps such as Venmo or PayPal. How can we protect ourselves on these applications?
So same kind of thing with the cell phone text messages or the email. Right off the bat, you definitely got to keep an eye out for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very common anymore that there's scams out there where someone will reach out to you and say, hey, I'm trying to send you, $100. Well, a lot of people see that and they're thinking, well, I don't know if I know this guy, but it is $100, and who knows? I mean, they could click on something like that. Or if they're a little sneakier, maybe you're buying goods off of Facebook, or you're buying someone's PlayStation, or something like that, and they want you to use like PayPal. There's a protected version, which is for goods and services, but there's also a version for friends and family that if you select that option, there's no taxes, no fees, whatever attached to it, but it's also, your money isn't protected. So what a lot of scammers do is they'll request money that way. Once you send the money, they'll just drop off and they'll disappear. So those are the things you got to watch out for. You always got to want to be careful for yourself at the same time that you're,
Pretty much everything is done online now, especially online shopping. It's easy and convenient, but how are we aware? What should we be aware of whenever we shop online?
So one of the big things that you'll find nowadays is that there are tens of thousands of fake websites out there that are made to look like the real thing. We don't see them very often because you only see them whenever you click on a phishing email or something like that. But there's websites out there that are made to look exactly like maybe Amazon.com or really any of the big shopping outlets, whether it's a shopping mall website or something like that. They make them to look as realistic as possible, because what they want you to do is to go to that website and not notice the couple things that might be off and think that you're on the real thing. And a lot of times up at the URL, instead of seeing Amazon.com, it might be Amazon with a 0 instead of an O. You might not notice that at first, and that looks legitimate enough, you might just scan right over it and not even notice it. So the biggest thing you want to do is only really shop from places that you know and trust, and only go to websites that you searched, like in Google, for example, and you went to yourself. Don't ever go into your email and click a link to Amazon.com in there, because you never really know where that's going to lead to, and odds are that email probably isn't going to take you to Amazon unless it's from Amazon.
So we've talked a lot about protecting ourselves when using different technologies and online applications. What are your top 3 tips to protect yourself from falling victim to identity theft and other cybercrimes?
So I will start with the phishing again, just because, like I said, that is the number one threat probably to individuals and companies both. Phishing is one of those things where it's also not going to go away, and it's so successful right now that until we start changing how we do things and as far as email, it's always going to be around. So right off the bat, you definitely want to always be careful when you're looking at emails. Look for the red flags. Look for things that make you pretty suspicious about the email. And it doesn't even have to be from a stranger. I mean, if you get an email that looks as though it's from your mother, but it's at 2 a.m. and you just want to question it a little bit, text her and just ask, did you send me this? Even at work, if you get an email that's just a little bit off and it's from even your supervisor, don't be afraid to reach out to your supervisor and say, hey, did you really send me this? If they reply and say yes, there you go. Now you can go into it and open it. But you always want to double check, where the source of that came from. Second thing I'd say would be, as far as the text messages, it's becoming more and more common. Get a text message from Credit Karma, Amazon, Chase credit card, just a bunch of different websites nowadays send you a text as a way of improving security. Hackers know that. Hackers are going to try to replicate that, and they're going to try to reach out to you in a way that makes it look like it's one of those text messages just to see if you'll fall for it. And if you think about it, it doesn't really hurt the hacker to try. So they might just be sitting on their couch somewhere overseas, just hanging out, and they can just send you that text message, and they're not going to lose anything. So you just always got to be on your toes about even text messages. And the third thing I'd say would really be with passwords. Definitely want to make sure your password's long enough. You definitely want to make sure your password's complex enough, and it's not something that's really easy to guess. If you have a rabbit named Hopper, for example, you don't want to have a password that's, Hopper's awesome, or just something easy that, anyone could guess if they know that you have a rabbit named Hopper. Just make it something that only only you could ever potentially guess, but something that you can really remember. Make sure it's at least 12 characters. Make sure it has, symbols and everything else in it. Make it complex. And finally, don't reuse that password on every website. And that's a big one that we're seeing a lot nowadays, where people might use that same password because it's a really good password. They'll use it on Amazon. They'll use it on their credit card company. They'll use it on their bank account. They use it on everything. The reason why that's a problem is because if someone hacks your Amazon account, they're going to see your email address, and they're going to take that email address, and they're going to go try to log in with that email address and password every single place they can think of, which might include Chase, might include your bank account information. It might include all kinds of websites that you're not even thinking of that you could get hacked. And instead of getting hacked on one, you could wake up one day and be hacked on all of them. So you definitely don't want to reuse your passwords.
Well, that was Brian from Belco. Thank you so much for joining the show. We definitely learned a lot about identity theft, and I feel better already. Thank you.
You're welcome.